Welcome to the Youth Sports Positive Podcast, where we're bringing the work hard, have fun mentality back to youth sports. My name's Kelsey Dennehy. I am your host, and I'm here with my dad, Mark Dennehy. Dad, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kels. This is nice. For those of you, obviously this is our first podcast. Kelsey is I'm from Boston. Kelsey's from Boston, but she has taken a job in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as a sports anchor and reporter. Um, I've got a passion for this subject. I feel like youth sports have gone awry. And there's so many positive things that I gained from youth sports. I think I passed on in youth sports to my daughters. With Kelsey's expertise, I thought this would be a good idea for us to connect. So it's a passion project for me, but it's also a great opportunity for me to see my daughter at least once a week.
It is, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But your expertise kind of matters more in the subject matter. So why don't you give us a little bit of background as to why this is a passion project, but also just what your qualifications are to be talking about it.
Yeah, so I coached for 25 plus years collegiately, ice hockey, as well as the American Hockey League. I had a short stint in the East Coast Hockey League. I was hired and ended up getting a promotion in the American League before I ever coached a game. Um, been around the game since I was 2 years old when my father, who was a printer who worked nights, used to bring me to the rink in the morning when he came home. Um, my mom put my brothers and I in youth hockey, but like a lot of kids our age, we played all sports. We played Nerf football in the fall. We played baseball and wiffle ball in the spring and in the summer. And we played hockey in the winter. It's what we did. A lot of it was street hockey, to be honest with you. Um, and a lot of it had to do with when I was born. So I was born in 1967. Bobby Orr was a rookie, 66, 67, and he basically took Boston by storm. They built the government, the municipality built more public rinks in his 8 years of hockey than they had before or since. And so there's a real hockey boom, and fell in love with the game. And honestly, it's meant the world to me. I went to Boston College, played at Boston College, and so it paid for my education. I was able to play professionally in Europe for a year. I worked at Princeton University. I've worked at the University of Massachusetts, and I've worked at Merrimack, which was the last college I worked at. And as a matter of fact, I met my wife when I was working at Princeton. So it's had such an effect on my life. And so I hate to see what's going on in youth sports today. There are still positive stories to be told, and hopefully we'll tell some of them.
I was going to say that's why we're here. And I obviously grew up with you as my dad. So I grew up doing or being a part of your career, kind of whether you liked it or not. But I also played youth sports. I've seen the evolution of youth sports in a little bit of a different eye as somebody who is now covering sports at the high school and collegiate level, and I have been for the past couple of years. So it's definitely, I'm excited to just talk because I know we talk about this all the time just on our own. So I'm excited to kind of bring some more insight into those conversations that we have about youth sports and hopefully send it in a better trajectory than it was when we found it. But I do want to ask Dad about we talked about how we wanted to introduce the podcast and what we wanted to say, and we landed on work hard, have fun. So I think it's only right if we tell the people where that kind of slogan, if you will, came from.
Yeah. So, one of the things you're going to get from this podcast, and Kelsey will kind of wrap it up in the end and give you a little bit of a template, but you're going to get book recommendations. You're going to get hopefully articles, newspaper articles, or Twitter feeds about positive things. Um, my mom put my brothers and I in ice hockey to keep us off the corner, to keep us busy, to make friends, and to learn life lessons. It's my belief that Sports are a microcosm of the real world. So if there are issues in the real world, they're going to present themselves in sports. But it's also my belief that sports are a great teacher of life lessons. And that's why my mother put us in sports. And so the first book I'm going to recommend to anybody out there is
Why are we
Start
talking
with,
about books?
well, hold on. It's called Start with Why by Simon Sinek. And
Okay.
so the reason I'm getting to work hard, have fun.
Okay.
Um, if your why is good, if you're putting your child in a sports for the right reasons, you're going to get a positive result. If you put them in sports for the wrong reasons, you're doomed from the get go. And so, my wife and I put our daughters in mostly team sports. Uh, Honestly, that my wife, who was a swimmer, wanted them to be in team sports. But what we wanted from sports were for our daughters to learn life lessons. And the two life lessons, the two of the biggest ones, and the ones I kept going back to, are, if at the very least they learn how to work hard and have fun in the process, then this whole all of their athletics will have been worth it. And so, from a very young age, whenever the girls get out of the car, what would I say?
Work hard, have fun. There was never, and people, this is always the funny part to me is people assumed because you were a college hockey coach that one, we were playing hockey because of that. No, that was never, I mean, I was bound to play hockey because I was around it for so long, and around it growing up, but there was never really a pressure for us to play hockey. And two, that you were coaching us growing up. You did not say a word to me about the sport of ice hockey in terms of what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing until I was 15 and I asked you for help. I have such vivid memories of youth hockey and playing, and I wouldn't even talk to you. You'd come run our practice and I wouldn't even have a conversation with you until the end of practice when you'd say, "Let's go, stop talking. I want to go home."
Well, I think I told you this, maybe I didn't. One of the deals that Mr. Riley and I had, I was lucky enough to live in the same town as one of my teammates, John Riley, and his daughter was on the team as well. And so we made a pact that I would coach Grace and he would coach you. That way, we knew that whatever was being shared, is in terms of hockey, there'd be some substance to it. But listen, at the end of the day, I think coaching your child is really hard, and I would much rather be your dad than your coach. And so that's the role that I chose. And then when you asked for some guidance, I was happy to give it, but I would always rather be your dad than your coach.
But I say all of that because I mean, I didn't really take hockey seriously until I got to middle school. And there was a little bit of a looming chance that I was going to get cut. And I didn't want that. But there was never a conversation where you and mom both said like, "Oh, like you'll be fine, da 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 da." It was work, then you have to work for it. And put your head down and do what you need to do. We'll help you get there. And that's where Keelan, my sister, and Caroline, my other sister, and I are very privileged in the sense that we had the opportunity to learn and grow in a very expensive sport. But
Yep.
the only thing I remember from you growing up was you saying, work hard, have fun. That's it. And we were around a hockey a lot. And that wasn't even Keelan's main sport or Caroline,
And
truthfully.
let's not forget, Keelan quit for a little bit of time, and it was fine. Like,
Yeah, funny story.
you
My
know,
sister Keelan got traumatized. We started hockey on the same day. And I got on the ice and give you like the little milk crates, whatever. I'm bombing around. She was, I mean, we're learning how to skate, so we weren't actually moving that quickly. I guess one of the kids who got on the ice was a little more advanced. He was just moving all over the place. He trucks her right over with that milk crate, and that was the end. She stood on the side and held her arm to the bench the entire rest of the year And that year was like October to March. I think it
Now,
was every weekend. And mom, every weekend we would go and it would be a whole ordeal. And you and mom would be like, "Nope, get on the ice. You signed up. We signed up for this. You're gonna go and do
those
it."
are the rules.
Every
Yes.
single weekend we would go and I was having a grand old time. It was like social hour for me. I didn't really care about the hockey part. She would stand and just cry. But she did it. She did
And
it,
again,
and then
part
she
of
ended up coming back to hockey later on,
that's right. Played
and
varsity high school
finding,
hockey.
yeah, finding some great learning lessons from that as well. But all that to say, I never knew anything else. There was
Yeah.
no coaching from you. There was none of that. It was 4 words, and that's what you would ask. We'd get in the car after practice, and you'd say, "How was it?" And I'd say, whatever I would say. Okay, did you work hard? Yes. Okay, did you have fun? Yes. And if I said no, then then you're like, well, that's your problem.
Well,
I don't know
well,
why you did that.
one of the things, and again, this is why I want to have this podcast because this could go in a number of different directions. One of our future guests, I hope, I haven't talked to him yet, but he's a good friend of mine. Is a gentleman by the name of Eric Capitula. He runs a company called The Program, and they're a leadership development group. He's a former Marine Special Forces platoon leader, and he has children, and they've played sports. And his take is, and I've come to embrace this a little bit. So you've got to find the fun. You've got to. It's not the coach's job per se to make it fun. You've got to find the fun in it. And one of the things I say to youth hockey organizations, and I've talked to coaches and directors of town leagues, um, and it's my belief is youth sports. If you're running a youth sport, your job is to create an environment where the child can fall in love with the sport, right? You're not going to bat 1,000. Not everybody's going to love it, but if you can create an environment where the majority of the kids fall in love with the sport, then if they're genetically inclined to the sport, because if you're not genetically inclined, I'm sorry, you're not going to be an elite player. You're just not. As I like to say, you can't win the Derby on a donkey, right? You need a certain genetic background. But if you create an environment where the kids can fall in love with it, and then you happen to have some of your athletes who have a genetic inclination, then guess what? You are going to have elite athletes in the end. But that shouldn't be your goal. Again, your goal is to create an environment they can fall in love with the sport. If at the very least you create fans, then you have been successful. And so there are so many life lessons to learn. We're going to go through them as it comes. The one that Keelan learned was we don't quit. You sign up for something, and even though you don't want to do it, we're going to see it to its fruition. You don't want to play next year, that's fine. That's your choice. But we signed up for this, and we're doing it.
And goodness gracious, has that become applicable in all of our lives, especially now, Keelan. I'm sorry, Keelan, we kind of put you on blast there for that one, but that's okay. We all, as young adults now, have been through something in the past year where we had the opportunity to be done, but that wasn't the right thing to do. And the right thing to do was see it through. And so that is our life lesson of the week. So that kind of goes into what we're going to do. In our episodes, they'll be bi-weekly. And one of the things that we are going to talk about each week is one life lesson that sports taught us. And usually that'll come probably with a funny story or an insightful story. Most of mine are probably funny. Um, but I actually have a good one for this week too. But this week we'll go with you don't quit. You see things through. If you commit to it, then you finish it. But some of the other components of our show that we're going to be adding in every single episode is guests every once in a while. Sometimes it'll just be us having a conversation, and sometimes we'll be lucky enough to have an expert in the field come in and sit down with us and answer some of our questions. And then another thing that we're going to do every week is a positive play of the week. So, what that is for us is something that my dad or I saw that reinforces the ideas that we're talking about, the positivity of youth sports. So much in today's world and social media and how quickly things circulate on the internet, it's very easy to get roped into negative ideas or things that are going on. So we're trying to bring that and flip it. So I guess, Dad, do you have one for this week that you saw?
You know what? I don't. I mean, the one thing that I really like was, um, and I don't have all the details, but there was a pitcher that was called up for the Red Sox, he's a little bit older, and it took him a while to get there, and it's not a great distance from the AAA team in Worcester to Boston, and he got a chance to pitch and pitched well. And I love stories like that. Someone that just stuck with it when people said that it couldn't be done, or you're not going to make it, or why are you doing this another year, just to get a taste. Now, how long his career is beyond this, who knows? But they're never going to take that moment away from him. So, again, I haven't followed the Red Sox as closely as I did as a youngster. And we can talk a little bit more about that with pro sports and some of the changes that I've noticed as I get older. Um, and your point about, it's very easy to get negative. One of the reasons why we're calling this youth sports positive is because of my frustrations with a lot of the negative parts of it. And we're going to talk about that too. But that story, just that young man getting a chance to play, making it in the big leagues. Yeah, I like that type of perseverance. How about
I
you? You got one?
Yeah, I do. But I was going to say that's a good, yours and mine both are applicable to our life lesson that we're kind of unintentionally hitting on for our first episode about the no quit. You actually sent me this article, but I had already seen it somewhere else. But I thought it was a cool story, and it will probably open a conversation more about multi-sport athletes as well. But the Chicago Blackhawks first round draft pick is a multi-sport athlete still. He was picked up in the NHL draft just a couple of months ago, and instead of, I guess, playing hockey year round, which he still very well might be, he's playing football, and he's a very good football player. So much so that he threw 4 touchdowns in his high school season opener this past weekend. And so I think something like that is really cool just because not only is he now getting attention for his athletic ability, period. Obviously, when you get drafted into the NHL, you're clearly doing something right. But I just think that it is such a positive reinforcement of sticking with the commitment you made. He made a commitment to play high school football this fall. And just because he was drafted into the NHL, he said, "No, I told them I was playing. He is their star quarterback. He brings a lot to this team, to this high school program where most of these kids aren't going to move on to play collegiate football, professional football." But he made a commitment. And so he is still playing. And I know the conversation around at risk of injury and all of that, yada, yada, yada. You're at risk of injury when you do anything, right? And so I guess it does make sense once you sign a contract and that is your job, but he's still in high school. He's 18. So I think that that was a really cool story. And I love that people are now picking up on just his athletic ability, period. But also the commitment to the team that he had already made before he knew where he was going, which ultimately is going to be Chicago.
Minnesota has a great high school sport tradition and community, and there's a lot of states that have that with football, or some have it with hockey. But they just have. I mean, these are guys that have played on the same hockey team. He's played on the same hockey team with his teammates in high school since he started, because
Right,
they grew up in the same town.
right.
And so you can say the same thing about the football. So, yeah, it's an opportunity for him to play with his friends. It was a commitment he made, and he made no bones about it that he was going to play in the fall. It's something he committed to, and it's something he wanted to do. So, yeah, I think that's a good one, Kels. That's commendable. it is definitely atypical of what's going on in today's youth sports. So
Right.
let's I give him a round of applause.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just think that's a cool story, period. And also pretty freaking cool that he is that talented in so many sports. Football and hockey are very different sports. So I think
But
that's
an athlete is an athlete, and that's one of the things when I was growing up that was, the running sort of the understanding was usually your best hockey player was either a pitcher or a shortstop in baseball. He was the quarterback in football, um, and somewhere along the lines, adults convinced other adults that children should specialize, and that will be a topic. What a couple of the other things that we're going to do on this podcast as well. So Kelsey talked about, we'll talk about a positive article or something that came across our vision. We're going to talk about different topics. It could be something that's in the news that week, but we're also going to talk about stuff like sports specialization, club sports, the length of the seasons. Um, we're going to bring in guests. So and then what I'd also like to do at some point, if we can get a little bit of an audience, is to answer the audience members' questions. I get asked all the time because I've been involved in sports at a high level. Friends, family, neighbors. Hey, I've got a friend whose kid, is playing this level of hockey, or they're being recruited in this sport. What can you tell me? And I'm happy to speak with people. There's a lot of bad information out there. Um, as Kelsey's mom and my wife Heather loves to say, I've got a lot of opinions, and unfortunately, I'm more than happy to share them. So, if there are some questions that you folks have about youth sports, be happy to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're also, as much as we're trying to, I guess, spread awareness is might not be the right phrase, but that's essentially what we're doing through these conversations. We're also trying to continue the conversation. So the
That's right.
conversation isn't just between us two anymore. We want people to ask questions, and we want people to share maybe things that they learned from here or through different resources that we've been able to promote here with the people in their life because that's how we all got into this mess in the first place with
And
youth
and
sport.
listen, we're not always going to be right either.
No.
I don't begrudge parents doing what they think is best for their child, even if I have a different opinion, because I think they're done with their child's best interest in mind. And one of the other topics, or one of the other, I guess, central themes to what you're going to hear us talk about is nobody knows your child better than you. And so, I'll give you some examples. In hockey, a lot of times players in their teens are asked to move away from home. It's fine for some kids. For some kids, they don't miss a beat. They live with another family. Obviously, it's not easy because they're away from their family, but they get there and they hit the ground running, whether it's school or hockey or whatever. With other kids, they really struggle with it, and so knowing your child is important, and so that's another factor. There's so many parts to this youth sport journey. If we can help anyone in any way, but we want to promote youth sports. We believe in them and think that they're, as I said, wonderful teachers of life lessons.
Absolutely. And I think another important thing for what we're doing here is something that we're calling this week's playbook. And it's how we're going to end every single episode. So we'll do the same here, but we are going to pass along an article or a book or some sort of reading material every single week, and it'll be linked on our website. That is in the link of all of our social media, so it's very easily accessible, easy to share. But just something that we think is a good read, something that is going to be either applicable to what we talk about that day or just something we read that we think might be insightful for other people to see as well. So
I've kind of already given mine away, but
you did, but you can talk about it more. I know you were jumping the gun. I was like, no, 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 stop, stop, stop.
well, it's our first one. We're still working out the case. By the way, I think you do have to give Kelsey a lot of props. You can take the girl out of Boston, but you can't take the Boston out of the girl. As I look behind you and I see the Fenway Park picture, I'm guessing Boston Garden and Gillette Stadium. So,
Nobody does
um,
it like Boston.
well,
Sorry.
Kelsey has a 2003 birth date. He's lived through a number of championships that I waited for most of my adult life. So she's a little bit spoiled. But yeah, so my book is Start with Why by Simon Sinek. And I believe that no matter what you do, whether it's your occupation, whether it's a new relationship with someone, whether it's picking up a sport yourself or putting your child in a sport, if your why is good, then you've got the best chance of getting a positive outcome. And if your why is bad, then you know you could be doomed from the get go. You can also Simon Sinek has a YouTube presentation on Start with Why. If you don't want to read the book, watch the TED Talk. It's excellent. What do you got for us, Kels?
Mine this week is I'm going to start off with one that I am still rereading. I read it for the first time in my one of my last classes at Indiana University as an undergrad. It's called Scoreboard Baby. Yeah,
Represent.
we're both repping today.
And I got my UNH hat for Keelan, so we're double dipping.
Yep. Yeah. So
What's it called again?
it's called Scoreboard Baby. So it's about the 2000 Washington football team
Awesome.
and all that came with that team. So a lot of people don't know, but there was a lot of crime, a lot of things going on in that program that were being swept under the rug. So not only is it just a fascinating read because you sit there the whole time thinking, oh my gosh, nobody knew. They were able to keep this under wraps because of the privilege they had as athletes. But also, from my journalist brain, it's a great reminder, and I think it's applicable for this conversation too, to be diligent and to be curious. And that's some of the best things that you can do. And I learned that first and foremost through the experiences that I had in youth sports. So I think kind of ties it all together for me,
Awesome.
and is what led me. The book isn't what led me to my career, but playing sports as a kid is 100% what led me into my career. So I think it's kind of just a perfect culmination for me. So that will be linked, and Dad's book will be linked as well.
Great. I haven't read that one. I'll have to put that on my book list, which
We
I
have it
have,
on
and
the Kindle, so
I would recommend anyone listening to start a book list. I always forget unless I write it down.
I
So
do too. I do too. I
awesome.
always just go off a whim.
So
But
what's our sign off, Kels? If we're going to wrap this up, how are we going to do this moving forward?
well, the same way that we jump in, the same reminding everybody that if you're working hard and you're having fun, then you're doing it right.
I
Um,
like it.
and that's how we're going to leave you today. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let us know. Our handle for all of our social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, is going to be Youth Sports Positive. So just the name of our podcast, super easy. And you can access our website through the links in the bios, as well as just looking it up online. But with that, thanks for joining me, Dad.
Yeah, thanks for
Welcome
doing
to
it,
the pod.
Kels. Yeah, Kels is
Um,
the executive producer, so I think today was probably a tryout for me. Hopefully, I'm not replaced in the second episode.
he'll be back. You passed. So,
Excellent.
so yeah. Thank you guys for watching. For my dad, Mark Dennehy, I am Kelsey Dennehy, and we'll see you next time.
Work hard, have fun.